Welcome everybody to the Lead Never Show. Once again, we promise you content that is irreverent, but we have also promised you content that is useful. So today we're looking at the Ghanaian economy. The Ghanaian economy is doing relatively better. The city is fast appreciating because the price of fuel is down and all that. But the question is, how does this translate into the welfare of Ghanaians? How does this translate into a betterment of Ghanaians? And for us, it's sad news right now that it doesn't mean anything for the ordinary Ghanaian. Or better still, it doesn't mean much for the ordinary Ghanaian. And it is for simple reasons. Reasons that as ordinary Ghanaians, if we sat down to observe critically, we realize that even if the dollar was pegged at once, our lives are not going to be better off. At best, our lives will be less miserable. And this is why, the whole concept of economic theory, okay, and by theories are just approximations of reality. Okay, so there's an economic theory that says that if these conditions exist, these other conditions are bound to exist. So an economic theory that will say that if inflation is down, if exchange rate is down, if the city is doing that, it results in cheaper goods, all that. But we'd have to reflect on the nature of these economic theories. The nature of these economic theories is that they are Eurocentric in nature. They are Western style in nature. Cast your mind back to when you were in school or any other economics class that you sat in, or even many of the other, humanities related programs or courses that you sat in. And then you realize that almost everything you learned was theorized somewhere. Okay. Very few, and I haven't even come across anything like that about economic theory by Ghanaians themselves, for Ghanaians themselves, using Ghanaians, okay, using very specific local conditions to make a theory. Usually, what our professors do at the university level is that they adapt these theories. Okay, you see somebody will take the Malthusian um, theory and make a funny twist to it and come out and pretend that as their own original thoughts. But that's a different thing for another day. So my point is that economic theory and its manifestation is flawed in Ghanaian contexts. Okay. So if you expect that interest rates are down, the city is appreciating, it doesn't work that way. Okay. Because the theories that make these assumptions does not add a critical element of the people, a critical element of the markets that they operate in. Okay. Obviously, markets in Ghana or the Ghanaian economy, behavior is different from an American economy, from a Japanese economy, from a Russian economy, such that if a theory has certain assumptions and those assumptions are proven to be true, it is easy for you to take those assumptions, let them manifest in a place like, let's say, it's easy for you to take, assumptions in China or the US, and it will easily manifest in other places, but not usually in African or Ghanaian contexts. I'll give an example. Do you know that your savings plus your expenses is supposed to be equal to your income? Yes. But you take this theory and get to Ghana, you add people's savings to their expenses, and what you get is triple or 10 times their income. Okay? So somebody is earning thousands and the person spends 3,000 of this. You ask yourself, how do you account for the 2,000? But that is the context, that is the rationale, okay, that certain theories are is difficult to place and focus in an Ghanaian economy. Somebody earns 3,000 and he's spending 3,000. Meanwhile, the person has not borrowed. Okay. So basically, The person's income is just his salary or her salary, but she still spends 3,000. So that element of magic in Ghanaians, that element of, you know, I mean, wanting something off and then able to survive in the system is not accounted for. Sometimes I remember when we were in school, our lecturer used to laugh at it. It's like, well, they don't even did so they don't even understand how it works. But that is critical for us to understand why the favorable economic conditions is 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 not so much good news. Okay. Most times price of things in Ghana are not reviewed downwards. There are many other things that can be reviewed downwards, but price of things in Ghana don't get reviewed downwards. Okay, so ask yourself the next time you're going to buy kinky, is it going to be 260 pesos? No. The next time you're going to take a loan from the banks, is it going to be 10%? No. Worse off, those other institutions that are into this, they don't, those things don't reflect. Okay. The point here is that the numbers on a theory or the numbers as churned out about an economy are not reflective of reality. I just mentioned that theories are approximations of reality. By approximations of reality, it is an attempt. Sometimes the approximation can be D and the reality is night. That is how far apart and wide an economic theory can be vis-a-vis a reality. So that is one thing. So we can't base, I mean, the the transmission of a theory into practice because oh, a theory says that this and that and that. And one more thing, our university processes have been around for a long time. There's no original thought. There's no somebody thinking deeply about it. Okay, how do we make these things? How do we propound an economic theory that properly accounts for the Ghanaian behavior? We don't. Okay, otherwise it would have been out there. I mean, before I did this video, I tried to look out for something like that. The other thing that this so-called favorable economic condition won't translate into good times for Ghanaians is greed. Yes, it's greed. Ghanaian businesses are greedy. Okay, Ghanaian businesses are greedy. Okay, we are very, very greedy. I mean, I remember when things were really hard. I had this company that was telling his employees that, look, you guys, we can't afford to sell these things at this price. We really, really have to sell it, increase the price, take notes. When things were a bit difficult, the company was insisting that the prices should be increased. Okay. Now that things look like they are better off, not 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 anybody in that company is making mention of um how do you call it, reducing the price of things or their products. No, they're so pretending as if things are not that bad. Okay, we're greedy. It's like looks like well, this is the time for us to cash out. Then they'll cash out. They'll cash out. And when things become bad again, they'll increase price because they really don't want to feel the pain of it. Okay. So that's another element. So far, I've mentioned two elements. The element of the fact that theory does not reveal in reality, and the element of greed. Okay, it's an intrinsic nature of Ghanaians. So we take it and then we go apply it in business. And then we insist that we want to cash out. The third element is that it is not only it is not only um, the dollar, it's not only the exchange rates, it's not only fuel that accounts for the price of things in an economy like Ghana. Funny enough. Have you bought electricity recently? Yeah, that brings me to utilities. Electricity is crazy. When you buy lights, or yes, when you buy light, I don't know about water, but when you buy lights, the thing does like flash. It looks like I even charged for the rising of the sun. You are charged for the setting of the sun. You are charged for the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't understand. I mean, I live a very modest life because I'm forced to live a modest life. I can't really afford much. But I spend 400 buying lights and I don't even use anything. Now come to think of it as a business. If as a business you are spending heavy or huge sums of money for just electricity, electricity is really expensive. I mean, I understand that Ghana and then if you compare the rates in Ghana to some other places, we're really not high. We're usually high on a lot of things. We're high on the STV. We're high on I mean data expenses and co. So you get it. Utilities are very expensive. Okay. So even if you used to buy, even if you're transacting business that's required you to buy the dollar at 15 cedis, now you're transacting business and you're buying the dollar at let's say 10 cedis or even 11 cedis. The utilities, I mean, I don't know how it happens. That thing can actually just fire out anytime. It is very expensive to run a business in Ghana. So yes, some other conditions may look favorable, but the effect of those favorabilities being cancelled out by some other wrong conditions. So yes, for us, there's a few reasons. We think that Ghanaian businesses are greedy. We think that it is a fallacy to want to translate, I mean, theory into practice. And then for us, we think that there are elements that go beyond elements or cost of production that goes beyond inflation. Okay, utilities, rents. Okay, so well, I guess we've learned one or two things. Shout out to Ghanaian businesses that are, I mean, it's good news for us. It's huge good news for us. And shout out to Ghanaian businesses, but we should do something about it. I mean, one last thing, regulatory framework. Okay, so as I was talking about the issue of the theories, okay, there's also those places that those theories were propounded in, they respect law. Just recently, I was reading on the news portal that how do you call it? The American embassy is still charging the rates at 16 cities. Okay, that's charging at 16 cities instead of let's say 10 cities. I don't know how true that is, but imagine that it's true. It is because we have a laxed, I mean, regulatory framework. I mean, a state institution like the BOG or the like the BOG has said it is the reduction or the CD performance is born out of market mechanism and not some kind of engineering by them. So we think that yes, things may be getting good in terms of some other items of the economy, but they may not necessarily translate into good times. Ghanaians are not going to be having so much money in their pocket because inflation is really going to not be low like that. We all know how it is. They can report there can be a report that says inflation is 23%. But the kinga you bought last year for 3 cities, you're buying it for 5 cities. Probably buying at 6 cities another time. But does that mean that's inflation is 23? But that's theory, that's practice for that's theory as against reality. So yeah, shout out to Ghanaian businesses. I mean, we hope that things get really, really better and then we will translate in good time for Ghanaians. Hi, bye.